Immortals: Fenyx Rising is the latest open-world title from publisher Ubisoft. Immortals was sent out with little fanfare at the beginning of December, relatively close to multiple other very large open-world titles. After playing all three of the games that Ubisoft had released in that time frame, the first being Watch Dogs, then Assassin's Creed Valhalla, followed by Immortals, I think it's fair to say Immortals is the best of the bunch. It is by far their most successful balancing of story, combat, and exploration in quite some time. Never once did I feel that a cutscene was too long, and the exploration is consistently rewarding. My only question for Ubisoft is, why did you send this incredible title seemingly out to die? The first game most people will bring up when speaking of Immortals is Nintendo's beloved game Zelda: Breath of the Wild. This game shamelessly takes many of the best parts of that title to build its foundations. An emphasis on physics-based puzzles, having systems that intermingle in satisfying ways, and offering up large worlds that demand that you explore instead of handholding you with forced waypoints. There are various upgrade trees for combat and traversal abilities. You can gain Ambrosia to earn more health chunks, or Zeus's Lightning to gain stamina slots. Charon's coins are used to upgrade your abilities and powers, and there is a potion crafting and upgrade tree as well. Each potion consumable slot is tied to one of the directions on the D-pad, and the system works well. Personally, I feel that Breath of the Wild was not wildly original. It was simply Nintendo's solid take on a lot of the gameplay ideas that Ubisoft and other developers had used to varying degrees of success. In aping what made Breath of the Wild so special to many, Ubisoft gives more of an approachable take. One example that's gone is weapon durability. A bane for me personally in my Breath of the Wild playthrough. In Immortals, you unlock various weapon types and skins for them, and you can change them out on the fly instead. The stamina meter is far more forgiving early on, and your character feels much more powerful with the fantastical Greek god setting. That Golden Island setting is a huge selling point. I never really felt much attachment to the lore built up in Breath of the Wild, but this take on ancient Greece really grew on me. The humor, which I feared would be off-putting at first, is well written and legitimately funny in a way that games rarely are. The narrators, Prometheus and Zeus, weave a tale that varies from delightfully cheesy to occasionally hilarious. It is one of those where the more serious side in Prometheus will bore the comedic relief Zeus, and the writing in general is of a high enough quality that things didn't delve into becoming a cringeworthy mess. The main character is a goofball in that irreverent nature works itself into the enemies and allies in an appropriate way. Each of the gods is well voiced and feels distinct in both tone and purpose. The main antagonist of the game is Typhon, who, after eons of being imprisoned under a mountain by Zeus, is able to break free and wreak utter havoc. This entails him severing 4 of the major gods from their godly essence. These are Aphrodite, the goddess of love, Ares, the god of war, Hephaestus, the god of fire, and Athena, the goddess of wisdom. The story has multiple twists and turns that are worth seeing, and it's one of Ubisoft's most tidy efforts in a while. It doesn't drag on in the way that I found Valhalla and Legion did when I played them. Graphically, the game takes great advantage of the next-gen hardware I played it on. Running at or near 4K, it is also running at a seemingly locked 60 frames per second in performance mode on Xbox Series X. There are graphical enhancements in the resolution mode, but the hit to performance was not worth it for me going back to 30 frames per second. The game has an almost Pixar movie style look to it. Rich colors, brilliant animations, and a fantastic art style make it one of my favorite looking games released in 2020. It is not a technical marvel, but it performs well and the design is excellent. To get around these scenic landscapes, you can either glide with Icaros's wings or tame or buy one of the many mounts that are available. Holding down Y will summon them underneath you, and they control well, though any large fall will force them to magically poof out of existence. Developer Ubisoft Quebec's previous title working on that was Assassin's Creed Odyssey back in 2018, which they made in conjunction with Ubisoft Montreal and a few other studios. The combat system in that game is the basis for a lot of what Fenyx can do, and it feels fantastic. From airy spears bursting through the ground to launch enemies in the air, to a massive hammer that can crush your foes, there is a plethora of abilities and upgrades to be had. You start out life on the Golden Islands as a lowly shield maiden who has never seen combat, but within a few hours, you are a finely honed demon-killing machine. Typhon has stripped 4 of the major Greek gods of that godly essence, so your goal is to restore them to their divine powers so you can all team up and take Typhon down once and for all. Doing this requires that you master a mix of close-range sword, mid-range axe, and rather weak bow attacks. My only gripe with the combat is how darn weak the bow always felt, even after fully upgrading it, going throughout the story and using the currency that you grind for. The sword helps replenish your stamina meter, which is used for your godly powers, and the axe builds up a stun meter, which is absolutely vital to taking down tougher enemies, as it'll give you a solid 5 to 10 seconds, depending on which enemy type, of uninterrupted damage once you max it out. Dodging does not drain your stamina meter, but it is limited in how many times you can do it at the start. Thankfully, upgrades to your dodge help empower you like a murder ballerina in no time. Taken shamelessly from Breath of the Wild is the ability to pick up and throw objects, which is incredibly useful in combat as a large boulder hits good and hard on a Cyclops' ugly face. Those enemy types are varied, and you face far more difficult and engaging versions of earlier types as you progress throughout the world. Even on normal, I felt routinely challenged, and after bumping it up to hard after a few hours, I was getting my head knocked in rather often. It never felt cheap, thankfully, though, outside of a few times where the climbing mechanic would kick in at the wrong time and I would be left open for huge enemy attacks. That got frustrating. Famed composer of the Ori games, Gareth Coker handles the soundtrack duties for Immortals, and his work is some of my favorite of all time. I'm a huge Ori fan, in large part due to his scores, and he raises the bar in this game. Pretty much every song is memorable, and I found myself constantly humming along as I explored the beautiful landscapes. In conclusion, I think Immortals genuinely is more fun for me than Breath of the Wild. I said it. I can't take it back now. It's funny, it's a blast to play, it's beautiful, and it really does have some of the best music I've ever heard in a game. I don't truly understand why Ubisoft released it with so little fanfare and sandwiched it in between so many large releases. If this game had come out either a few months earlier or later, I think it would have been a huge hit. As it is routinely on sale now, I can easily recommend it to anyone that has a pulse. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time here on XboxEra.